Okay, everybody, it's about a minute after 12. We get started. We'll probably have a few more stragglers come in, but hope all you and your family members are well and stayed safe during this COVID-19 crisis. Glad you could take a break from TikTok videos and Tiger Kings on Netflix to tune in today. Want to again thank everybody for attending. Blach Construction has been a partner with the AIA for a long time, and we're happy to be here today. And we thought it might be helpful to just share our experience through this COVID-19 crisis and sort of how we pivoted through this and been able to maintain work out on the construction sites. And so hopefully you can use some of these facts and tidbits to use as you start to re-enter the job sites in your own offices. So I'm going to switch over to presentation mode, and just some housekeeping things. This presentation will be recorded, and you'll be in mute mode for all of it, but feel free if you want to use the raise your hand function or type in a question. The moderator will let me know, and then I can stop and actually answer that question because I would like it to be interactive, but we'll also give time for questions at the end. So looking forward to a lively discussion, and I'm going to switch over right now. 1 second. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see my screen, and you'll see my video as turned off. So my name is Keith Craw. I'm the Vice President of Operations here at Blach Construction. Been with the company for probably 14 years now, and you know, I oversee, like I said, the operations group, and that's your project managers, your project engineers, your superintendents, foremen, all those folks you see in the job site trailers executing these projects. So you know, Blach's entering its 50th year, and you know, here in Silicon Valley, and we've you know, gone with the ups and downs of Silicon Valley through that period of time, but really have not experienced anything like this. So again, we wanted to just explain and talk to you through how we approach this COVID-19 crisis. So our agenda today is going to talk about the effects on Bay Area construction from COVID-19, are establishing and enforcing a new protocol, which was required to actually do construction here in Silicon Valley, the challenges we faced, and then navigating that new normal. So for me, this shelter-in-place order was a lot like some other big life events, similar to the Challenger spaceship shuttle explosion back in the 80s. I was, you know, kind of showing my age there, but and then the 9/11 terrorist attack, and then the Gulf War, things like that. I sort of knew when that shelter-in-place came out on March 19th, it was sort of that snapshot in time of I knew where I was, what I was doing at that exact moment, and it just really stuck in my head just as just a major event in my life. I think it will, and it probably is for all of you as well. We were all scared and confused when that shelter-in-place came out, and you know, a big part of me, I know at least I did in my family, we just wanted to go back in the house, lock the door, and just weather it out like a bad winter storm, and that's pretty much what the county and the state was telling us to do. But once we actually really read that shelter-in-place document, we started to understand that construction was able to continue. You had to look deep in the document, but there were something called essential projects, and we had really found after deciphering the document that 90% of our projects were considered essential projects. Some examples of those essential projects were public works construction and housing projects, and there was that term that came up called essential versus non-essential projects, and the essential projects were able to continue, as well as essential workers continue to actually go to those job sites. So there was a lot to understanding that, and there was a lot of knee-jerk reaction as a result when that order came out. We had a lot of subcontractors, contractors, and even owners shut down their job sites thinking they weren't able to continue work, but then quickly after they started to understand the shelter-in-place, came back. So that took a little bit of you know, cajoling and getting people to feel comfortable and understand, because that was at a time when there was no real guidance on how to perform construction during the COVID-19 crisis. So during that period, we sort of took a couple of step backs once we realized we had to continue working, and we came up with the term responsibly active. That was sort of our 30,000 foot take on this. And what that was to continue our level of service for our clients, for our construction projects. We figured we knew we had to put together a protocol for COVID-19 for our workers to be able to continue construction. And then at the same time, construction is a just inherently dangerous activity. So we had to maintain the normal level of safety on these construction projects with this added layer of COVID-19. So some of those challenges were, and are, excuse me, sorry, my presentation just dropped here. Okay, sorry about that. Well, social distancing. So how do you continue? Construction is an industry where it's tough to maintain social distancing. You may have a two-person lift where individuals have to help carry something together and they're within 6 feet, or be on a set of scaffolding doing some stucco operations and have to remain in 6 feet. So that was something we said, hey, how do we go about construction and maintain social distancing? Another challenge was just the general anxiety. You all remember back on, seems like ages ago, but back on March 19th, there wasn't really much direction on how to continue construction or let alone anything else during that period. So there was just anxiety related to coming to work. Then something you may not know is our craft workers, our union workers, for years have been, they don't have the same sick day policies that the rest of the state of California does. Within their union agreement, they have 6 vacation days, and those vacation days could be used as sick days. So, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to, if I was not feeling well, I'd want to power through that. If I had a cold, I'd want to power through that, not stay home, so I wouldn't lose my, a couple of vacation days for the year. So, off the bat, there was a workforce that's motivated to go to work when they're not feeling well. So that's just something that we knew would be an issue. And as you know, with COVID-19, we just not want anyone on these sites who wasn't feeling well, whether it was COVID-19 or not. And then, as everybody knows, we had the potential for a reduced workforce. There are a number of high-risk individuals that fit into the high-risk category. It was those individuals over the age of 65 and having pre-existing health conditions like respiratory issues, COPD, diabetes, a whole litany of them that the CDC came out with. So right off the bat, we had lesser workers, and a lot of times they were our more senior workers. So understanding, that we wanted to maintain a level of quality for our owners and also a number of construction challenges, we decided that we needed to come up with a COVID-19 protocol for our folks to be able to work safely. And a realization that we ended up having as well in all this, because we did have just a moral debate over, hey, is it right? Yes, our projects are considered essential, but is it right for us to go back to work during all this? And because the whole idea was to bend the curve and not spread the virus. But we ended up with this shelter in place document that actually said our projects were essential. So it put us at risk of, delaying our owners' projects. And we all know about liquidated damages. So we were trying to balance that moral argument with the fact that we actually, contractually were obligated to keep going. So like all good, reasonable people, we came up with a compromise, and that was our COVID-19 protocol. So, but at the time, there were no COVID-19 protocols that we can use as resources to create this for construction, because again, it was so early on back in that mid-March that the CDC and Cal OSHA, or OSHA in general, did not come up with protocols for construction workers. So what we had to do was, we thought about our most trusted allies in this, and that was obviously the CDC and the county public health. and as well as OSHA, and we also have our trade organization similar to the AIA, which is the AGC, the Associated General Contracting Association, who gives us legislative advice, and in this situation, they've been giving us a ton of advice too. So we were able to leverage those websites and the information created from the emailings and put together a document that help us understand COVID-19, how to run a job site without creating a hotspot for the virus at those job sites. And what we did was, one, determine, and understand how the COVID-19 virus was spread. As most of you know now, it's a person to person, or it could be an object to person. So that person to person would be, an individual sneezes, and those infectious secretions could end up going from one person to another, into the eyes, ears, and nose and mouth. And it also, that same person could sneeze, was infected, and it could get onto a surface. And what we found after all our research, depending on the surface, the virus could actually stay active for a number of days. So with those, sort of that method of spread in the back of our minds, we that helped us put together our job site procedures and the safety of our individuals. One thing that we had to really think about, it was social distancing. We all had a lot of information, or a lot of talk about social distancing, but there wasn't a lot of information about what social distancing entailed. We all knew it was about maintaining 6 feet distance from one another, but there was a lot more to it. And our challenge was we couldn't do that in construction. So we really wanted to look at social distancing as a whole. And on that right-hand side of our slide here, sort of goes into what we found that the CDC and the county actually considered what was social distancing. And that was everything from covering your sneeze or cough, wearing approved PPE, clean and disinfect, you can read the list there, but we really had to look at it holistically because we weren't able to maintain that 6 feet of social distance. And what we had to do with our COVID-19 protocol was to actually have plan Bs or backup plans and all this. One is you got to get rid of the high-risk individuals, not rid of, but just off the high-risk individuals off the sites. They just had to work from home. The other portion of this was PPE, which we'll get into a minute here, which was the personal protective equipment to actually, if there was an infected person on site, we'd be able to protect the non-infected individuals. And as we were doing this, we because the OSHA didn't really have a construction worker PPE for COVID-19, we started off with medical worker, the CDC guidelines for medical worker PPE. And you can see here they're wearing a gown, gloves, they got a face shield, and they got the N95 respirator, and then they got an alternate where they've got a face mask instead of the respirator because of the supply issues with that. So we sort of studied that. We knew that these individuals, these are ones who were able to work with people who were positive for COVID-19 or were suspected of having COVID-19. And then at the end of the day, they would wash up, take this PPE off and go home to their families. So what we did, because we knew we were at risk, because we had construction workers who potentially could be motivated to come to work when they weren't feeling well because of their sick day status, as well as just folks like to be macho and power through things, and not think it's anything related to COVID-19, but we wanted to hedge that. So when we put together our PPE requirements, we followed suit with a lot what the CDC was doing with some minor adjustments. And you can see here on the left, we have an individual who is wearing just the regular PPE on a block construction job site now. And that's the high visibility vest, the glasses, the hard hat and gloves, and the additional item now is that face covering, which we've all seen now, walking outside our houses, and that's just a regular occurrence now on the job site, along with our safety glasses. Now, because of the requirement of construction to work within 6 feet of each other many times, we added another layer, and that's that center picture along with the one on the right, and we added that face shield with that face covering in the center picture, and then on the right there's a respirator and goggles. So again, it's a little bit more requirements than what we needed, but we wanted to make sure that if someone entered the site who wasn't feeling well or had COVID-19, we wouldn't contaminate the entire site and have that construction site shut down. And then just getting back to basics, I have 3 little ones, and before all this happened, we were constantly on, wash your hands before meals, wash your hands, come out of the toilet, things like that. Well, it's just back to the basics. Cleaning your hands on the job sites, avoid touching your face and hair, disinfect. Our phones are probably one of the dirtiest things we carry around with us every day. And then just a lot of signage on the job sites and just reminders all around to folks. It sounds pretty elementary, but that's one of like the best pieces of defense in all this. And so one thing we had to do as well is we still needed, separate from our superintendents and foremen, like the field side, we also had to have our project managers and project engineers be able to be in these trailers. But what we did is we locked down and isolated our trailers to just us. Now, we love having architects come to our trailers. The OAC meeting once a week is probably one of our most productive days of the week. We enjoy having you folks out there to answer questions and to just talk through the design with and work through problems. But unfortunately, we're not able to do it at this time in person. But with GoTo and Zoom and Microsoft Teams, we think we've gotten good service from our architect partners, and we'll continue to do so, and want to facilitate you being on the site as much as we can virtually. So we're happy to do video walks with your CA folks and get them to see what they need to see on these sites. And then if we do have an instance where an architect needs to be physically on the site, we'll be able to train you on how to actually be on the site safely and with our COVID-19 protocols. And again, we got some more on-site procedures. One thing, so say if you did come to one of our sites, you'd be required to sign one of our daily certifications before entry. This is a basic checklist of, are you feeling well? Have you been out of the country in the last 14 days? All those types of questions to just certify that you are feeling well and that you're not sick. Understanding that you may be asymptomatic, but that's a way to certify all our subcontractors coming in as well as guests. And what that document also does is it allows us, because we write the name of each person in the crew we're with on those, we can track who that individual is potentially in contact with. So if someone did certify themselves as not feeling ill, and maybe the next day they came down with COVID-19, we could actually grab those lists, track all those individuals down, see who they were in contact with, and see also where on the job site they were contacted with, so we can clean the job site and potentially quarantine individuals who had contact. But at the same time, though, that's where our PPE came into play, where people are wearing face coverings, they're wearing gloves, they're wearing their goggles and things like that, so they wouldn't get contaminated if there was contaminated material on the site. Another thing that we did on the job sites is obviously increased cleaning and sanitation measures. And as you probably understand, it's tough to, maybe you've got an acre, a job site that's an acre large, and it's hard to go over and clean up that entire area. But what we can do is actually just clean the high traffic areas, like the bathrooms and the doorknobs to the trailer and those types of things, and hone in on the stair tower that the workers are going up and down. So that's just another line of defense for us. Okay, and then just more sort of do's and don'ts. Back to the basics. I went to a job site a couple weeks ago, and after helping put together our social distancing protocol, and one of the basic things, I went right up to one of our employees and tried to shake their hand, and I got greeted with, "No, don't do it." And so I, was embarrassed and just, but it's just out of habit. And I think that's the challenge we have with our workers is, folks are in their habits of shaking hands, and their habits of getting close, and maybe not washing their hands all the time or being in carpool. So we've got to spend a lot of time sort of breaking normal habits, which takes supervision. So we've had folks who try to supervise our transition to keep our workers safe during this COVID-19 crisis. So here, we won't, I know there's a lot on this sheet here. We really wanted to think about and understand and make everybody understand that we most likely we're going to have an individual come to our job site with either who wasn't feeling well or had COVID-19. And the idea was, that was just going to happen. But the idea was to be able to, within a short period of time, be able to have the job site continue working and not create a hotspot. Because again, on the moral side of things, we went into this wanting to reduce the ability for the virus to spread any further, but we wanted to continue work for our clients. So we put together these sort of what if scenarios or a protocol for when things happened. And because of our PPE and what we had put in place, it would minimize that spread. So essentially be removing an employee from the job site. We had folks that we alerted when that happened, including the owner. We had some owners who did want to know. And then we would take that subcontractor certification, or those individuals who came to the site, that certification of who was there and when, figure out who they were next to and within 6 feet of and what they were doing, potentially remove them if necessary, disinfect the areas where the employee was. And then at that point, we would take a look at, what was next for that job site. And in the instances, we did have 3 different job sites where we had a, sort of scare like this. We went through this procedure. One individual was ill, and the others were sort of prior issues, and we were able to work through them and actually keep those job sites open or minimize the period of time that the job sites were closed. So, and we had this is the second protocol. One was for fever, and the other was for, if someone was COVID-19 positive. But the COVID-19 positive protocol was pretty unlikely because because the testing was so hard to get. Most of the time, we found that these individuals weren't able to get tests in time. So we really treated the fever and the COVID-19 positive protocol very similarly. So we've talked through a number of challenges faced already, but we're going to include in a few more. The first thing was it's always hard to pivot. One of my least favorite things to hear is, hey, we always do it like this. Why should we do it any differently? I know architects hear that a lot from builders when they've got new ideas and new ways to build things. But this shelter in place was very similar. We had to change the way we did things on a day-to-day basis. And on top of that, the shelter in place rules changed, within weeks of each other. I don't know if you remember, we did have 3 iterations in a short period of time between what was a construction that was acceptable, and then there was another shelter in place that came out a few weeks later that made it even more restrictive and with different rules. So there was just a lot of flexibility that was needed during that period. Another was just trying to remain productive to all that. Like I said earlier, like most folks, I was one who just wanted to just go shelter in place and just kind of wait this thing out. But that, unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and I'm glad we didn't do that. But we had a lot of no-shows. We had subcontractors who weren't willing to work. We had one job site where there was a scare of someone who was ill on the job site, and that subcontractor just said, "Hey, we're leaving for a week. We're not coming back, and till X date." And we sort of tried to educate them, but there was just that fear, and that was what made them feel better, was just to go away for a week and then come back. So sort of dealt with those types of things. Also, as you've heard a number of times so far in this presentation, PPE was a big part of what we were doing, as well as cleaning materials. So that PPE, as you saw, like has those face masks and face coverings, and those were in short supply. So we really had to be resourceful when it came to getting those items. You know, the CDC actually was a really good help in doing that, in that they created plans on how to actually make face coverings ourselves. So we had folks in our shop downstairs cutting fabric and creating face coverings for our workers. We also developed our own face shield. You can see in that picture to the left, our workers are wearing a face shield that we actually created in our shop and built here, and we're able to mass produce and give to our workers, so we wouldn't have to buy face shields if they're in short supply or take them away from others. And it was a good way to, it was a good little project for us, and just a way we could actually help out without, you know, taking away from the healthcare workers. Same thing for cleaning materials. You know, with hand sanitizer, that stuff went away pretty quickly and became difficult to get, as well as you know, bleach cleaning materials. So we actually used the ingredients that were found online through the CDC and the county to actually make our own, because as you can imagine, having X amount of job sites and to clean that much square footage, we were going through that stuff pretty quickly. So we were able to do that as well and keep up with the supply requirements. And then, you know, as you can imagine, there's cost implications to all this. You know, so one thing we really tried to do was notify our owners that, hey, we don't know what it is yet, but here's sort of the outline of what this may cost and where the costs are coming from. Obviously, that the PPE isn't free and all that safeguarding related to it. And then there was decreased, you know, we didn't have this efficiency of workers as much because we were cleaning things more. At the end of the day, the workers were having to sanitize their hand tools because those tools go from worker to worker, and those things take time. So really, we were looking at, you know, 15 to 30 minutes a day of lost efficiency, and you multiply that on a job site with 130 workers, and that adds up pretty quickly. So there's some cost related to this. And then last year, we just, again, having our workers be mindful, we to these new processes and procedures, and we've really been proud of them. They've embraced these changes and sort of been very flexible doing it, and are having success and understand how important it was. And I think they respect the fact that we really try to do everything we could to continue having them get a paycheck in all this. Like I said, it was, you know, at first I think people had an issue with going back to work, but then when they, you know, after a week or two, they realized, hey, that there's not a paycheck coming in. This is a way I could actually continue to work safely and continue to provide for our families. And they were really actually motivated to continue with the program. So although we've had individuals managing these sites specific to COVID-19 to keep folks aware, like I said earlier, sort of breaking the old habits of shaking hands and getting closer than 6 feet, they've been really actually open to you know, bending the curve and reducing the spread. And yeah, and with all this, there's a new normal now. And with that, you know, there's just different ways of having to do work. Excuse me, I lost the presentation again. Sorry about that. You know, accepting that change and understanding all these new requirements. One thing that was really crucial for us in being successful in all this is just having that plan B. Like I said, sourcing materials from different locations and having backups within our protocol so that if we did have individuals come on site sick, that it just wouldn't shut down the whole show. And I think we owed that to our workers and our clients and to the community, that you know, if something like that happened, it wouldn't create a hotspot at one of the job sites. We felt like, you know, it was a privilege to, you know, to be an essential worker and to continue working, and so we wanted to really respect that and make sure our job sites, even though it may have had somebody on it, we can actually you know, not increase the numbers of folks who are contracting this virus. And lastly, to try to put this on a positive note in the end, there were upsides to this, which I know is sort of surprising to hear, but we actually found our productivity on job sites went up quite a bit. What happened is you probably saw, the construction industry really took a hit when this happened, and a lot of workers were laid off. Well, what happened is the subcontractors obviously kept their sort of most valued workers with the most experience, and so our job sites that remained open got sort of the cream of the crop and got a lot of them. And this is something we haven't seen in a long time because, as you all know, there's been a shortage of skilled workers in the Bay Area for a long time now. So we saw productivity go way up. We had one job where the city, it was a job where the city was working in as a partnership with BART, and we were doing night work because of BART ridership, and obviously BART ridership went to zero pretty much overnight, and we were able to do that work during the day and actually go to 610s and actually get the work done quicker. So that actually ended up being a positive. Something else that we've seen is, we've seen people can be really efficient using this video equipment and the video calling and the different platforms doing it. And I think we're actually, you'll probably all agree, is it's a longer workday now. Like it sort of just blends into the night, and people that we've seen are more efficient. I'm a guy who wasn't really big into working from home prior to this, but actually I can see folks can be really efficient working from their homes and communicating well between each other in this fashion. And I'd actually like to keep it this way for a period of time for folks who don't necessarily have to be in a particular place to work from home, because it allows our workers to have less traffic, reduces their commute, and they can have more efficient getting to work and not be as stressed out and not have as much wear and tear on them and their vehicles to get from A to B. So, if we reduce our traffic by a certain percentage after all this, I think that's a real positive and, good for the environment, good for gas and everything else. So that's something we looked at. And then we think our support from architects through this has been good. It like I said, we can help facilitate things where the architect really needs to be on site or see something on the site, but we really haven't skipped a beat in terms of that support. Now, one thing we warned a lot of our architect partners during this was, because of that acceleration of work, that's going to come acceleration of more RFIs. The submittals are going to need sooner. So we tried to prep our architect partners that, hey, we're moving quicker now, and that we'll need your support to do this. So with that, I know it went on for a while here. I'd like to know if anyone has questions or comments. I actually had a few questions for our group as well. If we, if we've got some time after folks ask questions, I'm going to turn off the presentation and go back into the video mode here myself. All right, so.
Bear with me, I'm gonna unmute everybody. Okay, everyone should have access to your microphones. If you still want to mute yourself for background noise, go ahead, but any of you should be able to pipe in.
Hi, this is Sharon Rivem, and thanks a lot for your presentation. I have a couple of questions for you. One is, what are you doing with your office staff? Are they doing some kind of separate kind of protocol? And secondly, you guys have done a really intensive look at how you're running your job site and all of this, and I'm wondering if you've started to have any conversations about what the end might look like under what conditions would you stop having this protocol in place? Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks for joining us today. Great question. I'm glad you brought it up on the office protocol, because I'm assuming you folks are probably looking to some point get back into your offices as well. I'm not sure if you read the county shelter in place as they were letting some businesses come back to work. They did put out parameters around coming back to work. And for construction, there was a large job site, a small job site, which had certain parameters. But then there was, separate from that, a protocol for coming back to the office. So we went off of that, and that was essentially everything from limiting conference rooms. Basically, we took the square footage in conference rooms and make sure we could get that the 6 feet of social distancing in conference rooms. We staggered our work hours in terms of days that people would actually be in our main office, and limiting the number of people that were in there at certain times. We're blessed with a larger space, so we're able to actually have a few more than maybe some other folks. And we have a number of offices that people were able to be in. We took our stairwells, and a certain time of the day, one stairwell was upside, and then we have a second stairwell that we changed to be the downside to get people just so you wouldn't have that choke point on a stairwell of folks getting within 6 feet. We have people who sign in the morning and certify down in our office. And with all that said too, I don't want to forget that we still encourage folks to stay home and work if they can, and if they can be productive. But with that though, we did want a certain, like 1 or 2 days a week where maybe they came in and did if they had to have a meeting with their team or just to check in with their team, we encourage that as well, because it is nice to get people to get face-to-face contact. So I think we all know we're getting a little bit punchy in this shelter in place when we're just with our family every day. So there's what else did we do? I'm in a conference room right now where we removed all the extra chairs for the number of folks that couldn't be here, and just put them off in the corner and listed the number of people that were allowed in a certain space. So obviously got rid of the coffee, or had to turn off the coffee maker and the common areas of food. We're still doing, to give people snacks and stuff, we have prepackaged snacks that we give people or allow them to have, but nothing that we're preparing, and we're trying to not bring no catered food and that kind of stuff in the offices. So that was your first question. Your second question, Sharon, was end in sight, like what do we, where do we get to? Frankly, I don't see, for face coverings, I don't see an end in the near future for that. I think this is going to be around for a while until there's a vaccine. We're working through it. Hopefully, our company, as well as other construction companies, can continue to keep working and not spread the virus on job sites. And because of the fact that we are able to work with these face coverings, it's working out all right. So I wish I could look in my crystal ball and say when this would subside, but unfortunately I can't. Is there any other questions?
Hey Keith, hi, thanks for the presentation. I just had a question with regards to change orders. Have any specific subcontractors been submitting change orders to you guys for reduced efficiencies or increased costs due to the pandemic? And if so, are they limited to specific trades, or are they all trades that are doing that?
It's interesting. What we got, what's been sort of most popular in this thing is within like 3 weeks of this happening, we got this general letter that said, and we frankly sent the same thing to our own owners, was, hey, we don't know exactly where this is going or what it's going to cost, but we know there's potentially material additional costs or this lack of efficiency. So they've come, but they've come very general. And we've tried to go to our owners and say, okay, this is where we think it's going to be. And I mentioned earlier, we sort of estimated our efficiency lost on time, what it would take to certify people every morning. So they were all sort of guesstimates, but just a way to notify our owners that it was potentially coming. And we have seen them, and some we've, as a general contractor, we'll parry away certain types of change orders, but we've been careful not to do that in all this, because it is, we do understand that it does take more to actually continue construction and all this, but we're trying to along with our subcontractors, be reasonable for our owners.
Yeah, because I think it depends whether or not your project site is considered a B1 or B2, right? And where I think B2, you have to have a safety officer on site specifically for COVID-19 purposes. I guess that would be a more direct hit, right? Because now you got to bring an additional person on site.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you brought that up. That's an interesting point, because yeah, with like that B1, B2, really that's like large project, small project, and they determine the difference between the two as square footage. So the large project is 20,000 square feet or above, and that's where that individual comes in. I think the acronym is JSAS. That's on large projects, you're required to have that JSAS, and that's a third-party inspector who comes in and inspects your COVID-19 program. So we were actually really fortunate, and I really applaud the Carpenters Union. They took a leadership role and said, you know what, this profession or this job doesn't exist right now. We're going to take our carpenters, and the requirement for those folks to do that job was to be CPR trained and to have an OSHA, I think it was a 30 certification. And they said, we have those individuals. We're going to offer this to our union contractors for no fee. So we essentially now have three or four of our job sites now who are being serviced by those individuals from the union at no fee to our owners. So we're happy to pass that on. And there wasn't a lot of parameters around it from the county either. It was basically this person comes to the job site once and does an inspection and submits a report. So we're going to do it once a month to make sure we're in compliance. But yeah, there's that individual, but there is also on the job site at all times when the job site's open, there is a COVID-19, I can't remember what they call it, like a representative or a safety officer that is the on-site rep that is a company employee doing that. So we've had that. So that's where there's some cost, because you got someone who's dedicating a good part of their day to maintaining the COVID-19 protocol.
That's someone that's part of Blach construction staff.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah, no problem. And what we did too is we tried to do multiple individuals, just because you can't always have that same individual there at all times. So we wanted to have a backup.
Thank you.
Hey, if I can ask a question to you folks, are you at this point, it's probably a little bit too early, are owners asking you, and are you thinking about changing your designs at all as a result of all this? We've been in this open concept deal, which is what I love, for a long time, but you see that starting to change?
So Sharon, again, we have a lot of talk in the industry about what kind of impact this is going to have on design. But buildings are 60 to 100 years old, or we hope that they last that long. And the 1918 flu pandemic was top news for 4 to 5 years after it happened, and it faded away. And so I think flexibility is going to be the big answer here going forward. We're going to have to address this in the near future, but a building lasts way longer than the near future. And I think that there will be room for that type of thing. The collaboration that offices allow is one of the biggest missing pieces for most businesses, I think, during this.
Absolutely. Yeah, have you all felt on your CA side that you've been able to support the job sites in the same way? From our side, we think it's been working out. How about from your end?
I mean, I can speak for, so I work at the airport, and we've been doing a lot of low-hanging fruit measures, a lot of signage, a lot of wayfinding, spacing, signage, queue design, how to make that a little bit more safe. So most of it has been very low-hanging fruit, kind of quick solutions, putting up dividers where needed. But as far as designing spaces, like with the social distancing in mind, I think it's still in flux right now, and a lot of architectural firms are trying to wrap their head around it, how to build for it and include it into the design. So we're actually going to have a meeting with Fentress next week, and we're going to kind of go through different challenges that it poses in different types of spaces.
All right, are there any other questions? Okay, and actually, hey, Sharon, one thing about that office return that you'll probably think about too is one decision we had to make as well, and I know a lot of other businesses, is the taking people's temperature as they come in the door as a way, either to certify or check to make sure that they weren't sick. That's something we opted out of. We even sort of avoided it on the job sites. I felt like it was just going to put people more at risk because you had that close contact, and our employees are not doctors and they don't do that every day, so I didn't feel comfortable doing that. So that might be something, you know, your organization wants to think about. Okay, well, I think if that's all the questions, we can sign off here. And appreciate everybody's time today, and I enjoyed it. Hope you did as well. And stay safe out there, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Thank you.